It had been a week since Rheis had come back. And a week since the song they made together had sat untouched on her computer. She couldn't bring herself to open it. To hear it. To let it speak. Because every time she thought about it, she saw him. His voice. His uncertainty. The truth he didn't even know he was giving. The studio was quieter now. Not because it had changed, but because the silence between her and Rheis felt louder than anything she could create. And that made the studio feel like a hollow space, full of sound but empty of meaning. Naeli never asked for clarity. She didn't need it. Not from him. Not from anyone. But what she couldn't ignore was the weight of something unspoken. Something that stretched between them like a chord not yet strummed. She could feel it, sharp and electric, not in the music, but in the moments after they stopped working. After the music stopped playing. Rheis couldn't stay away, but he didn't know how to stay either. The thing about fame was that it didn't let you disappear. There were always people wanting something from you. There were always cameras. Always posts. Always labels trying to make you bigger, faster, louder. But the night they made that track, when he stood there in her space, unguarded, for the first time in months, he felt something shift. Not in the song. In himself. He just didn't know what it meant yet. So, he kept showing up. Not with grand gestures. Just quiet presence. And quiet questions.
Why don't you ever smile?
She wasn't sure if it was a challenge or a question. But it was the first time he spoke to her like he didn't already have the answer. It was the first time he noticed the silence in her. It was the first time he saw her. And it was the first time she answered him. Because I'm waiting for something worth smiling about. She said it softly. No drama. No edge. Just truth, as simple as a note played in silence. He didn't say anything back. But she could hear the shift in his breath. The following week, Rheis came back to the studio after midnight, like he always did, but this time, it wasn't for another track. He just needed to hear the music. To feel it again. Not as a performer. Not as someone trying to prove something. But as someone who was missing something he couldn't name. When he found her, she was working in her usual corner. The room was empty, save for the hum of the equipment and the faint clicking of keys. She didn't even notice him standing there, just staring, watching her focus. When she did look up, she didn't smile. But there was something new there. Something soft.
Can I listen to the track?
He asked, quiet and hesitant. For the first time since they made it, Naeli didn't hesitate. She pressed a button on the console, and the track began to play. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was raw. It was honest. And it was alive. As the beat dropped, Rheis closed his eyes, his head moving in time with the rhythm. She didn't look at him, but she could feel him with her, in the music. The walls between them had started to crack. And she felt it. Later that night, they both sat silently, leaning against the console. The lights in the studio had dimmed. Nothing was said. Nothing needed to be said. It was the quiet between them that finally spoke the loudest. 2 days later, the call came. It was the label. It was time. The single was ready. The marketing campaign was in motion. The world was waiting. They wanted the song, but they wanted him too. And not just for the track. They wanted the story. The myth. The inspiration. Rheis stared at the phone, feeling the weight of everything he'd been running from. He looked up at Naeli, still quiet, still calm, but something in the air had shifted. There was no longer an edge. No longer a wall. She was waiting. And this time, when he spoke, his voice wasn't just about the music. It was about them.
I can't do this without you.
It wasn't a plea. It wasn't an invitation. It was an unspoken agreement. And she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. But when he reached out to her, their hands brushed, and for the first time, neither of them pulled away.